Aaron here. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I have for you today an interview that I did with Nathan Thomas, known online as Nasty Nathaniel. Nate has a website called Nasty Nathaniel where he focuses mostly on doing First Amendment audit videos. I tell Nate in this interview, I used to be tremendously bothered by First Amendment auditor videos, and after a personal experience that I had, I have come to very much appreciate them and what these videos bring to the table, particularly when they're done at Scientology properties, where Scientologists believe they are the law. So when you run into that kind of situation, First Amendment auditors and this genre of videos have a tremendous amount of value. So Nate and I discussed that in this interview, which I won't be too long-winded in this introduction, but I want to say at the outset that anyone out there who wants to take up this cause of doing First Amendment auditor videos at Scientology properties, both the city-level organizations and the high-level secretive confidential Scientology bases, like the International Management Base or the super secretive Church of Spiritual Technology bases, anyone who wants to start doing those videos, I will do anything I can on my channel to promote those videos, promote those channels. I would love for people who do those types of videos to be able to support themselves just through the ad revenue from posting the videos themselves. That's another thing we discuss in this interview, but for those of you who may not want to sit through a 1-hour interview, but might be interested in doing First Amendment auditor videos at Scientology properties, I just wanted to say that right at the outset. So without any further ado, here is my interview with Nasty Nathaniel. I'm joined today by Nasty Nathaniel. How are you doing?
Groovy, man. How you doing, bud?
Good. Hey, what do your friends call you?
Nasty Nathaniel. No, most people just call me Nate. Or at
Nate,
least people
okay,
I know
good.
personally. So.
Well, I never know if it's Nate or Nathan or Nathaniel, but Nate's good. I like that.
Nate's easier.
Okay, so Nate's much easier. So, okay, so you've been doing the Scientology thing for a long time, and I'll let you explain kind of what that is. But there's I don't want to do like a big long-winded intro, but I do want to start by sharing some information. I think the content that you put on YouTube that I'm most familiar with is the First Amendment auditor type content, and you do that at Scientology organizations, and I'm sure you do it elsewhere, but the videos I watch, I think, are mostly the Scientology organizations. And I just want to kind of start by saying that I've come to have such a appreciation for First Amendment auditor videos, even though I used to absolutely hate them. I used to see people who did the First Amendment auditor videos as you guys just walking around with cameras trying to piss people off and provoke a reaction from people. And I'm almost embarrassed to say that it wasn't until I personally had a horrible interaction with the Clearwater police that that I started watching these First Amendment auditor videos with a completely different perspective, and began to appreciate them in a way that I just wasn't even capable of appreciating them before. So there's kind of two avenues of discussion I want to go with you. And it's any of your involvement on the Scientology stuff, but also separately the First Amendment auditor stuff. And maybe I'm not even aware exactly where the overlap is here or when the overlap began. So tell everyone, when did your involvement in Scientology, not as a Scientologist, because you were never a Scientologist, right?
No, I've never been a Scientologist.
Okay. So when did your activism, let's say, on the subject of Scientology begin?
It was in 2016. I saw Going Clear and was just fascinated by it. And by that point, I was already, I already had a YouTube channel. I was already doing First Amendment audits. And I just thought, why not do a First Amendment audit of a Scientology property? And no one had done that at that time. Now other people have, but back then, no one had ever done an actual First Amendment audit. And so I went to PAC-Base. That was my first Scientology audit. And it was, they just totally freaked out and called the police on me. And I thought, wow, I think I could do something with this. That's kind of where it began.
So you went to L. Ron Hubbard Way?
Yeah. I went to PAC-Base, and what I did was I started circling the complex. So I walked down L. Ron Hubbard Way to Fountain, and then go up Catalina, and was just, filming everything I saw. And, of course, right away, the bike guards were on me. For people who don't know, at Pack Base, or AKA Big Blue, the security guards ride around on bicycles. And they started recording me and cam backing me, and so I left, and as I was leaving, the LAPD rolled up on me, and they were like, "Well, the Church of Scientology's called. They said that you're freaking a bunch of people out, and blah 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 blah." And they wanted my name and my info, which of course I didn't give it to them, and they were just like, "All right, well," I mean, there really wasn't anything the police could do, because I was on a public sidewalk, so I wasn't on the church's property, and so and all that did was encourage me to go back, and I ended up circling the whole complex 11 times, and they ended up calling the police again, and it was the same thing. The police were like, "Well, we can't make you leave, but you're freaking them out, and they keep calling us," and so it was just how, and it cracks me up, because, they like to refer to themselves as, what is it? Dauntless, defiant, and resolute. And they're getting so freaked out over one guy walking around their property with a video camera. I mean, I was by myself too. I didn't have anybody with me.
So what was the basis for which they called the police?
That I was recording. They just said that, or what the LAPD officers told me was that they're claiming that you're filming them, and it's freaking people out, and which is funny, because there was like practically nobody there. I mean, there might have been like a couple people at the little cafe, but other than that, it was just the bike guards. So I'm like, well, who am I freaking out? The security guards? I mean, and so that was their basis for calling the police. But the police couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't make me leave, because they couldn't trespass me, because I never went on their property.
Yeah. Well, so they have to claim that you're freaking people out, even though a Scientologist would be embarrassed at even the very idea of claiming to be freaked out by someone with a camera. That would go against Scientology principles of, TR0 bull bait or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, the example that you're given here really speaks right to the heart of what First Amendment auditing is even all about. Like, the fact that the police think that it's their job to get you to stop making someone uncomfortable, even if it were true, but without any regard for whether it were true. Like, making someone uncomfortable is not against the law. The police aren't there to enforce manners, or whatever, right? And you would think that eventually the LAPD would get sick and tired of Scientology calling the police for things that aren't violations of the law, and give Scientology a hard time for it, not give the people Scientology is calling the police on a hard time for it. Did you ever get to the point where the LAPD like acknowledged that you were not doing anything wrong?
Yeah, and it's funny, because the second time the police, because actually the police came out twice just that night, and the next two officers that came, the second response, the vibe that I got from them was that they just seemed like they were kind of annoyed, like, I mean, I'm sure the church was making multiple calls, and keep in mind too, this is East Hollywood on a Saturday night. I mean, the Los Angeles Police Department trust me, they have better things to do than respond to the Church of Scientology because some guy is filming their sign. I mean, so they just seem annoyed. But yeah, I mean, they totally acknowledged. They were like, "You're not doing anything wrong." I mean, basically, they were just there because the church called them, and then they left, and I just kept coming back.
So it all started in 2016 with Going Clear, huh?
Yeah, I saw Going Clear and was just fascinated. But, at the same time, I was also nervous too, because, I'm thinking, after seeing, I didn't know hardly anything about Scientology at that time. I mean, obviously I've learned a lot more in the 6 years that I've been doing this. But at that time, I didn't know, like, are the squirrel busters going to show up at my door? I mean, that's just how ignorant I was to it. I just didn't, because, you hear these stories about them, ruining people's lives. And I thought, they're going to, you know, I know I'm kind of, or at least at that point, I was kind of a small fish, but still, I thought, you know, it was nerve. But at the same time that I was nervous, I was also just fascinated with it. You know, it's almost kind of like when I went there that first time, if they would have just ignored me and left me alone and not called the police, then I probably never would have came back. But because of the fact that they acted so weird about it, I'm more interested, and you know, and then I wanted to go to other properties, and that's kind of where my idea of like, well, hey, let's do First Amendment audits of Scientology orgs began.
So you were already doing First Amendment audits before Scientology got on your radar?
Yes, I was.
How did you get into doing that in the first place?
It started when I was, well, it kind of goes back to when I was living in Hawaii, and I used to belong to like this comedy group called the No Act Crew. You know, like no act is kind of slang for like, don't be a fool, don't act up. And we got a spot in a local television show called Shaka Shakedown, which was on the Pacific Network. But we would go out to different places around the island of Oahu to film like our silly skits and our stunts and things. And, you know, there would always be like some security guard or something that would come out and tell us, oh, you guys can't film here, go away, you know, that would try to run us off. And I remember thinking back then, like, is that a law? I mean, is it against the law to like film on a sidewalk? I mean, I just always thought that was strange. And then, you know, fast forward several years later, I found a video of a guy who was filming the security gates of a Chevron refinery up in the Bay Area. And, you know, that was from a channel called First Amendment Tests. And me and him ended up linking up, and we're good friends now. And through that, I started seeing these other videos of people that were doing the same thing, like filming outside of a police station or, you know, a military base. And these, you know, there would always be some security guard or some MP or something that would come out, or you can't film here, or you can't. And, you know, up here on the Central Coast of California, where I live, there was nobody that did any of that stuff. And so I thought, like, I'm going to give this a go. And I remember my very first audit, I filmed the security gates of a nuclear power plant, and they just freaked out and called the police. And I was like, wow. And it just never stopped.
Wow. That's wild. It is amazing. Like, humans just have this visceral negative reaction to having a recording device pointed at them. And I'm no exception. I mean, it's I think one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way when I first stumbled upon these videos years ago is I could just see myself in many of those persons' shoes being like, I'm not agreeing to be recorded. And I would go, I know that I would not be able to prevent myself from reacting negatively the way those people were. But it's different when the police get involved. I mean, the police are supposed to know the laws and supposed to know that their job is to enforce the laws and not just to enforce their opinion or exert their authority. And that's what I've come to appreciate about these videos, is to see, man, the police really think they can just tell you to do whatever they want. They seem to have lost sight of what their job is, what it means to protect and serve. And that's why, honestly, I just love the videos now.
Yeah, no, they're addicting. They absolutely are.
So how many Scientology properties have you done First Amendment audits at?
Oh God. Oh, so many. I mean, all the ones in Los Angeles, I've done the Orange County org, San Diego, and then I've gone out of state. I've Seattle, Cities org, Chicago, Houston, San Antonio.
Really? I had no idea it was that many.
Yeah. Las Vegas. Wow. That was the last one I did.
Did you do any East Coast ones?
The furthest on the East Coast would be Clearwater. Was those 2 times I came out to Clearwater. You know, I did the superpower building, and I actually did. I don't know if you. I mean, this wouldn't be considered a Scientology org, but I actually the first time I went to Clearwater, I did a First Amendment audit of the apartment building where Tom Cruise's luxury condo his house in, and they freaked out, called the Clearwater police, and, and I got the idea to do that during the Cult City Tours, the Superfan event. Remember when we walked by it, and I remember you pointed it out, and so the next day I actually went back there and did an actual like audit of it.
Wow. If you ever come back to Clearwater, what would be amazing is to do one of, there's a big giant PC folder warehouse. So it's where they store auditing files, and maybe they have like some buses parked there, but it's in like a kind of an industrial commercial area, totally non-residential. And they've probably never had anyone walk around their property ever. I'm sure they would freak out. So like when you're taking video of Tom Cruise's apartment building and the police show up, what did they say?
I mean, the Clearwater police were actually pretty educated about it. I mean, they knew right off the bat that we weren't doing anything wrong. They just confirmed that, yeah, there was a call made, and that's why they were responding to it. And that's why they were making contact with, I was actually with another First Amendment auditor, and they basically just was kind of like, hey, we're just here because we got the call. Like, we're here because we have to contact you. But I mean, they didn't try to identify us or anything like that.
Oh, they didn't. Okay, good. Good.
They were actually, to be honest with you, they were pretty professional. And it's funny because, like, seeing all like the old, like, Mark Bunker videos where, he had some pretty negative interactions with the Clearwater PD. I mean, he actually did a whole video on it. And, I was pretty nervous. I was thinking I'm out of state, and, I didn't know. I mean, if I did get hemmed up in Clearwater, that would be a big hassle for me, obviously. So, but fortunately, yeah, they were pretty good.
That's great. That's great. What's the craziest thing that has happened at a Scientology property in one of these First Amendment audits?
Oh God, there's so many. God, I mean, I got so many stories. I could probably keep this stream going for 2 days. But the one that stands out to me was I went out to Gold Base. It wasn't the first time I'd been to Gold Base. I had done a First Amendment audit of there previously, but I went out there with 3 other First Amendment auditors, and we went out there at night. And that was actually my idea to do that, because I thought I can't find any videos of anybody filming out there at night. And it's such a creepy place to begin with. But so we went out there in the evening, and that was where Catherine Frazier and her, the Golden Era film crew came out and confronted us. And I mean, they didn't just come out, hey, what are you guys doing? I mean, they got all up in they were putting their cameras they were basically like bumping their cameras against our cameras. And Catherine Frazier was pointing her finger and yelling at me. It kind of made me think of that scene in Louis Theroux's My Scientology movie. Remember where she confronted Louis Theroux and was trying to say, this is a private road. And he's like, no, I got a film permit. And that's it made me think of that. That was probably, I think, the craziest. But there's so many. Do you have
that footage? Is that footage on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on my channel. I think if you just type in First Amendment audit, Scientology Gold Base, it'll pop up.
Oh, yeah, I've got to see that. You would think after all this time that these people would understand the best thing you can do is nothing. They just make it worse. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. You'd think they would get this by now.
You would think.
So you would think. So they came out with cameras with lights on the cameras. Did they have like separate lighting guys or just lights on the cameras?
If I remember right, yeah, they had lights on the cameras. I mean, they came out with one of the guys. I actually recognized him from some of those promotional films that they have for Golden Era. He's like an Eastern Indian guy. I've seen him. He was one of the guys. He was actually one of the guys that stuck his camera in my face, like the cameras were like bumping up against. I mean, they were pretty aggressive. I mean, it was crazy.
Were the police called?
Yeah. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department came out. And it's funny because one of the deputy sheriffs that responded was one of the sheriffs that responded to my original audit of Gold Base like a year before. And he recognized me and he's like, "Oh, you're back," or something like that. But yeah.
So how did the Riverside Sheriff's Department handle it? Did they acknowledge you weren't doing anything wrong?
Yeah, they absolutely did, and they went into the security booth and talked with what was one of the guards' name? Mark Headley's talked about him, Kevin Catano, and Catherine Frazier, and basically were like, I mean, I don't know exactly what he was telling him, but I'm assuming he told him that, well, there's nothing we can do. They're on the road. But then he came back out and we had an interesting interaction with him. I wish I could remember that deputy's name, but he basically was like, okay, well, I'm here. Like, what can I do for you guys? And so we started telling him, well, why don't you look into Shelly Miscavige? And we kind of took that as an opportunity. And he's like, all right, well, he started writing it down. You give me all the information. I mean, it's not like this Riverside County deputy is going to find Shelly Miscavige, but we started pushing that. And he was like, okay, well, when did she disappear? I mean, he started like taking all the information that was probably put into some report later. And then finally they left and we left. And that was
you left night. When the police left?
We left after they left. Like, one of the reasons that we stay after the police go, or at least for a little bit of time, is to show like, hey, you didn't run us off. We know we have a right to be here. The police know we have a right to be here. And now we have a right to be here. So that's something that's important, is even after the police go, you want to hang around for a little bit longer, just to basically, for lack of a better way of putting it, to prove your point. Like, hey, I have a right to be here. I have a right to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, they're going to think that that's what happens when you call the police on people. They eventually get you to leave,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you went to the INT base twice. Did you ever go to any CST bases?
Yes, I did. I went to the one up in, they call it Twin Peaks, the compound where, I mean, who knows if she's actually there or not, but the one where it's highly believed or highly rumored that Shelly Miscavige is being kept. I went up there with Angry Gay Pope and a protester who went by G.I. Jenny. We went up there and same thing. I mean, they called their security called the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, because the CST Twin Peaks is actually in San Bernardino County.
San Bernardino. I always get that wrong.
Yeah,
man, I got to tell you, if I lived near that area and they called the police on me every time I showed up to do something like that, I would do it every goddamn day, or at least every week.
Until they finally figured it out.
Yeah.
That one was, well, what was kind of nerve-wracking about that one is, like I mentioned, I was with Pope, and we kind of broke the rule. Or I mean, no, Pope was looking at it more as like a protest, where I was kind of doing it in the style of a First Amendment audit. But we broke a rule of not going on the property. We actually did go on the property, and
how'd you go on the property?
Well, you can actually, there's two sets of gates that sit a little ways back on the road, but by the time you get up to those gates, you're actually on their property.
I see. So if you go up and touch the perimeter fence, you've gone too far.
Yes, you're on their property.
I see.
And I knew that. And but I walked up with Pope, and he went up to the thing, and he's like, I'm going to set off the motion sensor, and he starts shaking the gate. And so that's when the security came out. And they actually have these these two houses across the street that the church owns, and I guess that's where their like security control room is. But that's where the security guards came from. Oh,
and were they Sea Org security guards or private security?
I think they were private security. They weren't wearing like the PAC security uniforms. I mean, they were in plain clothes.
Right. Well, they wouldn't be wearing PAC security, but see, I think the actual security staff would be inside the base, and the hired private security are in those buildings that are technically off of the base.
Yeah, they're right across the street.
So I'm saying off the base, but it must still be Scientology owned property, right? Or rented at least. I guess we don't really know. But even in that case, so you're saying Pope went on the property.
And so did I.
And so did you. So did they consider it a trespass? Did you get arrested?
No. What had happened was the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department showed up, and they wanted our info because they're like, we need to get your identification so we can issue a trespass warning. And if we refused, we're like, we're not giving our info. And they're like, okay, well, basically the deputy was like, this is what it's going to come down to. I'm going to talk with their people, Scientology, and, and see how they want to proceed with this. If they want to do a private person's arrest, then you guys are going to be arrested for trespassing. But we're going to see what they want. So they detained us. I mean, we were there on the side of the road probably for about 20 minutes. And finally the deputy came back and he said, okay, well, I've spoken with their people. They don't want to pursue this. So you guys are free to go. So nothing came of that. But I think probably the reason that they didn't want to do a private person's arrest is because, if we fight it and it goes to trial, now they're going to be subpoenaed and they're going to have to come and answer questions that they're not going to want to answer. So I think that's why they didn't pursue it.
Right. How far of a hike is it for you to get to that property?
Well, it's way up in the San Bernardino Mountains. I mean, you would have to drive up there, and then once
I didn't mean like an actual hike, but just like how far of a trip?
Oh, it's way up there. I mean, it's like up in the clouds. I mean, that's how high up you are. What's the thing about like going to that place is there really is no, like, there's no street parking. I mean, there's really nowhere. We actually parked right up the road. There's a Christian camp, and we just parked in their parking lot, and we were just like, well, hopefully nobody will say anything, and nobody did. And then we hiked down the mountain because like the Christian camp is like up here and then CST is down here. So we just basically came in from behind, and which was really cool because we got some great photos of like the rear of it,
Interesting.
And then
could you see, well, my understanding is that there's usually a house or a structure that covers up the entrance to the vault. And I think there is a vault at that location, if I'm not mistaken. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's my understanding. My understanding is there's a vault where they have L. Ron Hubbard's words etched on metal plates. And that's at CST, Twin Peaks. And there was actually, it's weird because like I said, we came in from the rear of it, and there's like this bridge that goes over like a ravine that connects with one of the other buildings on the property. And just like at Gold Bear Base, there's ultra barrier like surrounding the entire thing, spikes, pointing inwards and outwards. And something else that was strange, I just remember this, was on the fences all around the property. There was these pink ribbons tied around the I mean, I don't know if that means anything, but
I don't either, but I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that in some of the videos that I've seen of the base, and I didn't know what that was. So is that the only time you've gone to that CST base?
No. I actually went up there with one of the guys that I went to Gold Base with at night when Catherine Frazier yelled at us, a guy called SGV News First. We actually went up there once at night, and they called the sheriffs, but nothing really. I mean, that video is actually available on his YouTube channel. But the sheriffs came out, and it was a very mild response. They basically, I mean, it was nothing like Gold Base. I think at that point, maybe they were starting to learn, like, hey, the more we give these guys, the more they're just going to keep showing up. But
I'm wishing for like an army of First Amendment auditors to descend on all of these properties and just keep doing it until there's no reaction. That's like my greatest hope.
Well, you know, honestly, Aaron, it's kind of started to happen. I mean, like, for example, if I was to go to Los Angeles and go do a First Amendment audit of PAC base, chances are I'm just going to get ignored. I mean, I think they finally figured it out. Where they will freak out is if you go to like some like random Scientology mission, you know,
right,
where
that no one's,
yeah, that they have no idea what First Amendment auditors are. But if you go into any other properties in Hollywood, they're going to know. They're just going to ignore you. I mean, somebody might cam back you from a distance, but it's you know, if you're just standing on the sidewalk filming, I mean, they're pretty much going to ignore you, which is what they should have done from the very beginning. But I think they've kind of caught on to it.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff has Scientology done to fair game you? There's got to be stuff.
Yeah, they when I first started doing videos on Scientology, I was working as a courier for a laboratory, and they called. Somehow they found out where I worked, which, you know, I'm sure probably wasn't hard on their end. And they called my boss, and were, you know, telling him things like, well, do you know he has a criminal record? And do you, it was so hilarious. Like, one of the things they said, they asked was, well, do you know that he's gay? And my supervisor at the time was a lady who was gay. And she was just like, okay, well, I do now, you know, like, and it's funny because
what year would this have been?
2016.
So now just imagine Scientology thinking that that's something an employer is going to care about.
Well, yeah, I mean, that, like my boss told me about this. She's like, the way they were saying it was almost as if they expected her to be shocked. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that Nathaniel was a homosexual. Like, oh, we're going to fire him. Yeah.
See, that's ridiculous. A reflection of the fact that Scientology believes it is so horrible to be gay. That's what that is a reflection of. They think it's horrible, so they expect everyone else is going to think that it's horrible as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
But hold on, Nate. How would they find out where you worked? I mean, did you have it on your Facebook page? I mean, would they have had to follow you in order to find out where you worked?
You know, honestly, Aaron, I don't know how they found out. I mean, I'm sure with their resources, I'm sure I don't know if they had a sleazy PI run my social security number and find out that. I mean, honestly, I really don't know, but they did call my work, and, you know, I did hear about it. I mean, of course, and just for the record, I didn't get fired.
But I want to make sure we're clear about this. So them calling your boss, and let's be honest, they're trying to get you fired.
Absolutely,
was purely in response to you doing First Amendment audit videos at Scientology properties.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
That's what it was.
For that reason alone, an army of First Amendment auditors needs to like go anonymous on their asses at all of their properties, and not just California. You know, it's one of the things I like about the First Amendment auditors is that they're not, the ones that I've seen at least, they're not hiding who they are. They don't give their ID to the police unless they have to, but they're also not hiding who they are. I feel it gives them more credibility. I don't even know quite how to explain why, like what I mean exactly, but when you have someone showing up with a mask, to me, that's kind of, well, it's very scary. It's intimidating. It's threatening, even though it's not illegal. And so I think there's something a little more pure about just showing up as a person with a recording device or multiple recording devices, and just being like, see what happens.
Yeah, like okay. I'm not hiding.
Right. Okay, so they tried to get you fired there. Is there anything else crazy like that happened?
Well, there were some strange things that happened. Like, for example, prior to that, to doing like First Amendment audits of Scientology properties, I had actually spent 4 months in the Philippines, where I was filming what was supposed to be like a documentary about strange and unusual aspects of Filipino culture. And so I was there in the Philippines doing that. And when I got back and started doing the Scientology stuff, my my good friend in Manila actually contacted me, and he said, hey, I recently went to Recto, which is an area in Manila that we used to hang out a lot. And he said, I went to the restaurant that we would, have breakfast at before we would film. And he said the owner was there. And he said, like, hey, where's your American friend? And he's like, oh, he went back to California. And he's like, yeah, there was a couple guys that came here recently and were asking, questions, like unusual questions about him. And the kind of questions they were asking was, well, do you know that he's gay? And they wanted to know, are you aware of any gay bars here in Metro Manila that he hangs out in? And, crap like that. And then there was also another place that he went to in Recto where, because like I said, I used to hang out in that area a lot. And he said it was the same thing. One of the guys that worked in one of these bars that we used to go to was like, hey, where's your American friend? There were some people that came and were asking about him. Wow. And it was the same kind of questions. Like, do you know that he's gay? Like, what gay bars does he hang out in? Like, wow. I mean, I can't prove that it was somebody from Scientology, but it was this. I mean, it's highly suspicious.
There's no question. So that's classic. I mean, that's classic Scientology procedure there. So just to sort of give you a similar story. Like, so me and one of my buddies were doing a whole bunch of house flipping together. And to understand this, you have to understand we were just working for ourselves. Like, I was the money guy. My friend was the work guy. Like, between the two of us, we were in business together. We were working for ourselves. So we probably did like 20 properties together. And and then I got a call from about 3 people who'd purchased properties from us. All within a week, 3 people called me. Hey, just want to let you know, I got a call from someone who said they were looking to hire you. Wanted to check references, see if I had a, what my experience was like. And I was like, oh, that was Scientology. And because they do that, they do this false prospecting thing. So in your case, what were they doing? They were, they're asking questions. Well, the asking of the questions is designed to act like an accusation or to spread what they think is slanderous information or whatnot. Now, in my case, they were just looking to find somebody that would talk shit about me. But they do that fake thing of they pretend like they're hiring you or checking references or looking into your background, but really they're just trying to spread around slanderous stuff or try to find other people who will. To me, there's no question that whoever was asking those questions about you was from Scientology. And that was in the Philippines. So how would they have known that you were there? Were you posting to social media?
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. I had lots of, and I've been there several times before. I've spent a lot of time in Manila. And so I'm sure they went and looked at my YouTube channel and saw the videos that I had published from when I was in the Philippines. And, also, I mean, there's all sorts of photos on my social media of my time in the Philippines. So that's what I figured they probably did, which shows that they were obviously looking into me.
So now I'm really curious. So the person who was asking the questions, was it an American or was it a Filipino?
Well, what I do know is that my friend said that they said that one of the guys was American. And Scientology has a mission in Manila. It's actually in Pasig City, which is like a suburb of Manila. And the mission holder is an American guy.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe they contacted, maybe they contacted the mission of Manila and maybe asked them, hey, can you, go? But think of I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Think of the effort that they put into that to call someone in a foreign country to go look around in Manila and find information about me. I mean, it blows my mind. Even to this day, when I think about it, I think that's just so crazy.
It is incredible because we're not talking about ancient history here. We're talking about 4 or 5 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah. So
that's insane. Just for walking around Scientology properties with a camera. And that's why it's like, sometimes I love the idea of just creating so much busy work for Scientology staff that it gives them a little bit of a break from working on their, like it's exciting for them to be able to work on stuff like this. Like it's a complete and utter waste of time, but it's also kind of exciting because the life of a Sea Org security guard or Sea Org member is pretty boring. Like it's stressful, but it's also very mundane. It's not exciting at all. So even getting a call from the Office of Special Affairs to go sniff around and stir up trouble for some guy who's making trouble for Scientology, like that's exciting to a Scientologist or a staff member to even be asked to do that. So why not make their lives as exciting as possible and have hundreds of people doing audit videos around orgs? And the other thing is, like, you can make money doing it these days. Like anybody with a YouTube channel can, back in the day, people were doing this just for the heck of it. It wasn't really, you couldn't make a living doing it. These days, you could actually make a living.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Has your channel been demonetized for any reason, or is it going strong?
My channel has been demonetized.
Has been or has not been?
Has never been demonetized.
Good. I think I was talking to someone. It might have been Pope. Is Pope's channel demonetized?
Pope's channel is not monetized, and it's funny because now that we're talking about this, that's one of the things that I used to always get him to do, because he would constantly complain about how no one's donating to his Patreon. I'm like, that's not how the internet works. There's a reason why people watch videos on YouTube. It's free. I mean, wouldn't you rather Google pay you than, it's, so I would always try to get him to monetize. For whatever reason, he won't do it. So I think he just doesn't understand.
I'm going to have to talk to him and try to get him to change his mind on that. Because it's like, I've run into some other people as well who I can think of who seem to think there was something unvirtuous or whatever about turning on ads. And I go, it's more virtuous than asking people for money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what
people can choose to watch the ads, or they can skip the ads, Yeah,
exactly. And what people don't, or some people don't realize is that, like, going out and doing these First Amendment audits, especially when you're going out of town or going out of state, it costs money. I mean, airline tickets, hotels, rental cars. I mean, to go do a First Amendment audit of the Scientology Twin Cities org in St. Paul, Minnesota, that wasn't free. I mean, I had to rent a car, I had to drive there, I had to stay in a hotel. I mean, believe it or not, auditing costs money. So, yeah, I mean, why not monetize?
Absolutely. One of the videos, one of the channels I watched had sort of an instructional video of like, sort of the 10 commandments of doing First Amendment auditing. There wasn't 10 of them. There was only like 3 or 4 of them. But one of the commandments was never go alone. And I'm wondering, how has that been for you? Do you do a lot of it alone, or do you always go with someone?
Oh, I've done quite a few audits by myself. Actually, I think I've probably done more audits by myself than I have with other people. I mean, a lot of those early Scientology audits, I was by myself, which, I mean, I kind of agree with that to an extent. I mean, yeah, it is good to have somebody with you. Yeah, I mean, look what happened to a non-orange at Gold Base. I mean, I know he wasn't there doing an audit, but, he was recording and the security guards attacked him. And, so, and that kind of stuff can and does happen. I mean, I've been assaulted, and I've had people try to grab my camera and stuff. So yeah, I would definitely say it's better to have somebody there with you. But one of the reasons I kind of like going out by myself is I can kind of like dictate how I want to do the audit, like what I want to say and how I want to narrate and how I want to put it all together. When you have somebody there with you, I mean, depending what their personality is like, I mean, so
it's true. I mean, I guess where you potentially get screwed is if someone decides to do something to you or takes your camera or takes your footage, you've got no documentation. So I guess, I mean, have you ever had anything like startling like that happen to you while you were doing one of these things?
Yeah, it's actually funny that you mentioned that. This was actually recently. This was in Las Vegas at the Scientology Celebrity Center there. I was doing a First Amendment audit. That's like the third time I've audited that place. And this lady who was driving by, stopped and rolled down her window, and I was with another auditor, and was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" She started yelling at us, and we're basically just, first we were just trying to tell her, "Hey, we're doing a thing about Scientology, like go away," and she didn't leave, and so then, it just went back and forth, and it came to a point where she actually like got out of her car and got in our face. I was filming with, I have a Canon camcorder that I was using, and she came over and tried to grab my camera, and I was like, "Look, you touch me, you go to jail." And so that was pretty intense. But the reason I'm telling you this, when I published the video, I had no idea who that girl was. I just thought it was just some random Karen, and it's not like the first time I haven't experienced that. But then people in the comment section started saying, "Hey, and they put her name. And so I started looking, I looked her up. Come to find out, she's a porn star. I'm not, you can't make this stuff up. She was actually an adult film star. And, but for whatever reason, she chose to stop and confront us. I mean, and we weren't even focused on her. And that's a lot of times during these audits things, you'll just have these random people that see you, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then they confront you. And it's like, you're not even a part of it. Like, our attention was on Scientology, not on her, but she ended up becoming the star of the video just by the way she freaked out. Yeah.
Wow. So do you have any plans to go to any of the other CST bases? I guess that would require a lot of traveling, but have you looked into it to see like where they are and what it would take?
Yeah, there's actually one here in my area. It's it would probably take me about 45 minutes to drive there. This is the Creston Ranch where L. Ron Hubbard passed away. That's which is in San Luis Obispo County. And the problem with that place, I've actually gone out there before. The actual property itself sits on a private road. I've actually looked into it. I mean, there's signs posted that say this is a private road. And I actually contacted the county, and they confirmed that, yeah, that actually is a private road. You do need permission of the people to pass through there. So that was kind of disappointing. But at the end of that road, there's some kind of similar thing with the CST Twin Peaks. There was like some Christian school or something. So I was thinking like I could rent a car and like drive out there under the guise that I'm going to the Christian school. Like I'm thinking of enrolling my kids in the Christian school or something. And at the very least I could get some shots of it.
So that's the Creston Ranch. Is that a CST property now?
That is a CST property. Yes.
There's supposed to be, there's a vault there.
Yeah, honest with you, I'm
gonna have to look it up. I've never sat down and plotted all these things out on a map. Dylan Gill has explained this to me so many times, because I've never had a visual reference. It just goes in one ear and out the other. But I don't remember knowing that the Creston Ranch might have a vault on it. It could. I just have no idea.
Yeah, honestly, I know CST Twin Peaks does. I don't know about the Creston Ranch. I just know that it's most famous for being that. I mean, that was where L. Ron Hubbard lived his final years, before he passed away. I mean, that was actually where he passed away, was the Creston Ranch. And there's just not a lot of. I know that drone pilot Angry Thayton, he went out there and got some aerial shots of it, but as far as I can tell, like no one's got any like shots from like the ground. Like I'd like to go and like film the entrance to it, but the thing that makes it tricky, like I mentioned earlier, was it sits on a private road. But I thought, I could.
So the road is private, but you also have to take the same private road to get to the Christian school.
Yes. There's a Christian school at the end of the road, like past the ranch.
So both properties are private properties. You can only be accessed through a private road. That's really weird. How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. If it's something where I would imagine they get in contact with the county and somehow are able to make it. Because I know like that road, you know, earlier when we were talking about Gold Base, God, what was the name of that road? I've lost it. But it was that there's a road outside of the perimeter fence at Gold Base where there were some houses. It was just a small, like, it was more like a cul-de-sac. And there were several houses on that road that were all owned by the church. Actually, Claire Headley and Mark Headley, when they were both at Int Base, lived in one of those houses on that road. And but one of the last times I went out there was all the houses had been demolished and the road had basically doesn't exist anymore. It had been tore up. And I contacted the county, and the county of Riverside had confirmed that the road was acquired by the church at some point. It originally was a public road. Like when Louis Theroux went out there with the BBC, it was a public road. But at some point the church had, you know, basically, I don't know how you go about doing that, but they were able to acquire they turned the public road into a private road, and now the road's not even there anymore.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, if you can rope anyone else that you know into doing some of these First Amendment auditor videos, you let them know. I'm more than happy, and I absolutely will feature the videos, do like highlights of the videos, do reaction videos to the videos to help get them exposure and get them views and grow any channels that want to focus on that. I would love to be able to help people do more of that, because it's not the kind of thing I know I'm ever going to get around to doing, but anything I can do to help others do that kind of work, I'm more than happy to do it.
That'd be awesome. And, you know, it's funny you said that you probably never get around to doing it. I was going to suggest, like, the next time I come to Clearwater, you and me should go do a First Amendment audit of that property you were saying where they store all those files.
I'll do it. If you come back to Clearwater, I'll do it with you.
That'd be awesome.
The Clearwater police will probably know the both of us when they show up.
I'm sure they know me by now. I'm sure they definitely know you. So,
well, that's awesome. Thanks for doing this chat with me, and we'll have to think of something else to talk about another time. And I'm going to talk to Pope about monetizing his channel. You got to monetize the channel. I know he spends so much time doing videos. It doesn't make sense to just try to focus on Patreon. Let Google do the work for you. That's what it's there for. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this with me. This has been a lot of fun, and let's do it again soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right